conversation.
The last conversation.
The last conversation. And we're back. And we had just got into an interesting conversation about whether or not you think that there would be any more riots.
Yes, I was asking you, did you think it was going to be any more riots?
I don't think there would be any more riots.
Okay.
I think Governor Hogan and I think the mayor, everybody's taking a hard stance on this now. And I can remember coming up 695 after the first trial, and I think I saw about 13 or 14 vans with like state police people. I mean, they're geared up now, and it's not going to be the soft approach anymore. So I think whatever approach they're going to use is going to be a very harsh approach. I just saw the sheriff's office; they were out there waiting, and it's not going to be any more. We're going to let you tear the city.
Right.
That's the end of that.
Right.
So, I mean, I think that it's kind of like one of those things. It was almost like get your anger out, and I hope you got it all out because that's the end of that.
Right.
Right. We're ready to move on and do something else. I think the business owners took a hard hit.
Well, they took a hard hit, and I hope that there are not any more riots. I think that people need to organize to for change and to get things done. I think the riots and tearing up the city is not the answer, not the solution to the problem. Also, people have to be more engaged in the political process, and they also have to recognize that they picked the leaders that they had. Would they either voted for them or didn't vote for them?
That's my problem.
Right.
Most people of color, African American people, they're really not voting.
I understand, but that's part of the problem.
So I understand the frustration and everything. But this is the problem that when we were researching on the issue of the success of black people and why they have stumbled.
Exactly.
So, really it's like, okay, why have we stumbled?
Okay.
But one of the things that we don't do that's important is vote. I hurt my feelings one time. A guy that I respect highly told me that he doesn't vote. And then he tried to justify why he doesn't vote. I don't mean not voting if you are legally able to. Okay, meaning some people on the basis of their criminal record are not able to vote.
Right.
Okay, and there's a case, United States versus Rodriguez, that governs that. But for the people who can vote, not to vote is un-American.
But not only
And it's un-American if you're black,
right.
if you're a green Martian that's visiting. I don't care who you are. If you don't vote, that's un-American.
Well, Martin Luther King said that a hopeless people is a voteless people.
Hey, so I mean that's my issue with it.
Basically.
So I don't know. I think a big part of this is going to be who's going to be the next mayor and what direction they're going to take the city of Baltimore in. But I don't think there's going to be any more riots. I think the government is going to be too violent in anything they do as a response to it. They're not having that anymore.
Right.
Man, ain't nobody running around burning up stuff.
I remember you and I talking about the riots, during the riots, right? And I think you was on the phone, you was in your law office, and I was probably at my office at home. And we were watching a bonfire in the middle of Monroe Street, and you were on the phone, and we were talking about this car just riding around the bonfire.
You know what?
And boy said, look at that.
You know what that means?
Look at it.
That means we as a people don't have any other place to go. That car looked stolen. And all it was doing was riding in a circle.
Around the fire.
Right, because even after I done stole something,
Right.
I don't have any place to go.
Right.
I think it was very symbolic,
Right.
and I think it was very telling.
Right.
See, when your frustration can only boil over to that point, when you haven't figured out how you can navigate this thing called America, and that's really what needs to be talked about.
Exactly.
Navigating this thing called America.
Exactly.
Right.
Because let me tell you something, boy. When I was working for the government, okay, which you affectionately call the adult daycare.
Yeah.
I realized when that job closed that I had to really showcase and put my talents on Front Street if I was going to survive.
Right, because when you're in the private sector, you might actually have to do something for that.
Exactly. So, and I thank you for giving me the greatest compliment to say that I transitioned very well. But what I think what made me transition very well was the fact that I had, through the years, I had built up a skill set, and certainly my skill set magnified when I met you. Okay.
And so did mine.
But I was building it up
So did mine.
because I knew that gravy train was going to close at some point because it was sitting in the middle of Owens Mills on prime real estate.
Well,
So I was prepared. I knew it was going to close. They got a book out, boy, called "Who Moved My Cheese?" They moved my cheese.
but was it really your cheese?
Well, it wasn't my cheese, but they moved. They moved what I was living off of.
I understand, but I actually think that those years that were a disservice to you.
I agree.
I think they lulled you into
A false sense of security.
a false sense of security that they're receiving relatively low wages for your skill level
Exactly.
was the optimal point for you to somehow be able to become lazy.
Exactly.
When you're a high energy person,
High energy person.
good with interacting with people, and you have a lot to offer the private sector.
Exactly. And let me tell you something. When
I worked for the federal government too before.
Right.
And I'm gonna tell you, I did it until I could come out and practice law.
Exactly.
But the day somebody said I go practice law, guess what? We were
Practice
open
law.
for business. Day one, you know what I mean?
There you go.
Open for business. So, I mean, I think they lulled you into a false sense of security.
Exactly.
And I don't think at the end of the day it didn't serve you well.
No, didn't
You
serve
know
me
what I
well.
mean? No, not at all. In the time that you've been since Rosewood, you know, your life has grown exponentially.
Oh my God.
I mean,
It's an stratosphere in there.
from being Joe Schmo
Yeah.
to being, you know, featured on John Oliver's show on HBO.
Exactly.
Right.
There's a stratosphere.
And there's not too many people from Baltimore that get any notoriety outside of the city limits of Baltimore.
Exactly.
Right. For anything.
For anything.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, our highest guy was really like a Ray Lewis or something.
Right.
I mean, that was our star.
Right.
You know, once he retired and all that, you know, we in trouble.
Yeah.
Ray was the man.
Right.
You know, but other than that, you know, in the Freddie Gray situation had some high profile angles, but I'm gonna be honest with you, I think everybody's tired of Freddie Gray. I actually think that's why they postponed the trial. Man, we'll deal with that later.
Okay.
We'll deal with that later.
Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
I
it's true.
think they thought they was gonna get that guy William Porter. I thought that if the reason they tried him first was that they could get all they could get out of him and then flip on the guy.
I actually think it's all backwards.
I think.
Well, I think the only person that they would even have a possibility of convicting would be
The driver.
the driver, Mr. Goodson.
Right.
But the other guy, I mean, what do these people do? I mean, let's talk about it.
Okay.
Let's talk about it. What
Let's
do they
talk
do?
about it.
What do
Okay,
they
well,
do? What do they do?
let me explain my
What do they
version of what I said.
And look, I'm a criminal defense lawyer.
I understand.
I feel for Freddie Gray. There may be the first two officers that look like they heard him before they put him in the truck. But if the idea behind this is going to be, you should have put my seatbelt on in the back of a paddy wagon in Baltimore City, which is probably one of the most dangerous cities in the country, you crazy.
Okay. Well.
You crazy.
Well,
If that's gonna be the stand, and I'm cool with Freddie Gray's family getting the money, let them have the money because a wrong was committed. But to make me believe that all of a sudden we all gonna wake up and everybody gonna be with their safety belt in the back of the paddy wagon like we going to camp, I don't believe that.
Well, okay. All right. Well.
You follow?
Okay, but let's talk about it.
Okay.
Now, when you brought up the belt situation, you know, in back in the paddy wagon, you know, they've begun to strengthen these paddy wagons, you know, and make sure these seats belt active.
You really believe that?
I'm just saying. What
I'm seriously.
I'm not saying that.
I'm asking you as a truth and honesty broker.
Okay.
Do you really believe that?
No.
Okay, so let's not even talk about that.
But let's talk about.
Let's go to the next series of questions,
Okay,
ladies and gentlemen.
but let's talk. But let's talk about how he got to the point that he may have been injured before he got into.
But do you
the
really
van.
see? I think that's the part that you're missing. Once they got paid and they were compensated, that for the most part was the end of that issue.
Oh, so what you're saying is that, and I may or may not subscribe to this, but you're saying that once the city understood that there was a basis for having a settlement, that okay, the family's been paid, the family's been compensated for a wrong, and therefore there should be no this rush to judgment about who's culpable for the death of Freddie Gray.
That's true, but maybe it was an accident.
Okay.
You know, they pay out on accident.
I know they pay on accident,
But
but
some call accident they pay out on.
I understand, but they pay out on. But the issue becomes is that okay, Freddie Gray died, bunch of stuff happened, and I guess politics is saying basically somebody got to pay for it. So I believe that they're on trial for two reasons.
Okay.
One is to possibly get at the truth, but also to make the government look like that they had the right response to it. I'm not saying this was the right response. I'm saying.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, there are a lot of different opinions. I think certainly, you know, the state's attorney's office was well within their right to proceed with charges. I think at the end of the day, they're not going to get a lot of convictions.
I think that you're probably correct, but I think
I think he's going to be down to the driver.
Right.
I think the autopsy report or whatever came from the medical examiner says that it didn't happen before they got in the truck. So those first two bicycle guys are cleared, basically.
Right.
So that's a waste of time.
Right.
You follow me? So now is the state's attorney's office doing the right thing in terms of Spike Lee? Yeah, they're doing the right thing.
Okay.
But the result of it may be meaningless.
Okay, but you know, I'm glad you brought up the thing about.
But they're doing the right thing.
I'm glad you brought the thing about Spike. Have you seen that movie, Chirac?
I haven't seen the movie Chirac. I saw Spike Lee discuss it.
I saw the stuff.
But honestly, the way I feel about it, and I haven't seen the movie, Chicago is nothing compared to Baltimore on a per capita murder basis. It's laughable.
Right.
What they call Chirac can't compare to Baltimore.
Right.
The crime cities of Baltimore or Detroit, some of these odd places, New Orleans, Memphis. It's not what you would think it would be. They kill more people in Baltimore than they killed in New York City. So, I mean, this whole Chirac, I know they got problems.
But let me tell you why.
And the other issue is maybe it's not Chicago versus Baltimore or New York. Maybe it's places where black people live. And why is it that places where black people live, whether it be Gary, Indiana, Chicago, Baltimore, have this high murder rate?
You know why? Because I think that you have a scenario where you have a very concentrated population of economically disadvantaged people with no hope and no opportunity.
And look, I'm with that. I'm from Randall.
Okay.
I can run with that all day long.
Okay.
But the problem is they've done studies on this.
Okay.
And when they compare it to other economically disadvantaged people of different races in the United States, they don't respond the same way. Which I think is why part of our misunderstanding.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
Well, it's the truth.
Okay.
It's hurtful, but it's the truth.
Okay. That's interesting.
Right. They've already tested the theory of what if you take I'll be honest with you, a bunch of white people and stick them in the hood.
Right.
How would they respond? Less violent.
Right.
And I think perhaps it's because of the Willie Lynch syndrome and the understanding and the miseducation that we received coming out of slavery.
Right.
That somehow or another we're constantly pitted against each other to hurt each other. So I think the whole Willie Lynch idea, which in our rebranding of Black America, when we get it up on the internet,
right,
or whatever you want to call it, the Black Manifesto, is basically the basis of the understanding of why this problem occurs.
Right. Matter of fact, I'm glad you brought up the rebrand of Black America. I talked to some people over at WBAL TV today, and they gave me an email and told me to send the rebranding of Black America.
They can handle it.
Okay.
I actually think.
I talked to some people with it.
Yeah, I
got that on my phone. I have the email.
I actually think at the end of the day, it's whether or not you can handle it.
It's WBL News Tips. WBL newstips.com.
They can handle it. I don't know if they can handle it. So, anyway, get back to our point. So, I think all of these things are covered. I think, unfortunately, and we state that in the rebranding of Black America, that people, to some extent, are running away from black people. And the thing that we looked at with the other person, D'Souza, states that first it was white flight, and then it was black flight.
Right.
And, now it's just, I would say, the scrambling of Section 8. Right. I mean, they running us away. Well, because we haven't had a frank discussion with one another in the community about real ways to resolve this. This has almost been like a Black History lie.
I know, but boy, that still goes back to the fact that, okay, if you've had Democratic rule for such a long time.
I don't even think that's the issue.
Whoever was in charge, boy, was also in charge of the resource it takes to bring people out of a plight. Now, that's just the way it is. You can't say you're the government and just slide on the side and say I ain't responsible for them people down there.
I think realistically,
that's not the way that works.
Well, it sounds good, but we both know that's not what's going to happen.
I'm just saying.
I'm not going to wake up tomorrow morning and get myself I'm not going to wake up in the morning and get a deed for 40 acres in the mill.
Oh, no.
Or a deed for what would have been the equivalent, the monetary equivalent for 40 acres in the mill. Right. See, that's what it keeps going back to.
I know, but
it goes back to basically like a twisted reparations argument. What's the government going to do for me?
Okay.
How the government going to make my life right?
Okay.
Well, the government ain't going to do nothing because the government got problems right now.
Yeah.
The government trying to print its own money and keep up what they trying to do.
Listen to
The
me.
government got problems.
Okay, but the government got problems, right? Okay, but the issue becomes, and I'm way far from being a Democratic socialist. However, I still think that it is the government's responsibility to create a level playing field.
I hear you.
Now, forget the 40 acres in the middle. That ain't coming. It ain't coming because let's start talking about it. However, I think that in order to make sure that all taxpayers contribute equally to the system, they got to be brought out the plight that they're in. So what we're saying that can't happen, then we have a generation X of people that's just lost and they never gonna come out of it.
Right.
Basically, that's what we're saying.
Because the government's not going to do it.
Well, let me tell you what let me tell you what I joked about with some guy while I was out doing pest control one day, right? Now I'm riding around, just before it got real bad, and I thought about you and some stuff we talked about 3 years in last conversation, and I said, you know what? Boy is right. We gotta help ourselves.
You got to help yourself.
The government is not coming to save us. It ain't like that. So that goes back to the argument.
The snowstorm proof.
Yeah, it's snowstorm proof. That goes back to the argument, right, that we have to become self-sufficient.
If you live in the hood, maybe they're going to get to your street.
Let me tell you something. It was so bad out there in the hood and the county, okay, that you couldn't move through the streets.
Right.
The snow kept coming so continuous,
Yeah,
you couldn't plow.
But people think that the government going to come save it. They crazy.
Right. But
They crazy, and you know what? That's silly.
Yeah.
I mean, really, you really have to figure out how you want to be able to maneuver around.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm glad that I had to be put in a position where I had to step up. I think it made me a better person. I think it made me a better person.
I watched the positive change, and I think you've done well. But and when we used to talk, and I used to hear you talk about basically living off the state of Maryland.
Yeah.
And you know I love you, and I will say on TV I love you.
Yeah.
But I was like ashamed when you used to say that. I was like ashamed because I saw a person that's just so talented that wants to get up and basically just get a government hand.
I know.
And there's a difference between a handout and a hand up. I'm all with the hand up. Everybody needs a safety net to some extent.
Exactly.
Unemployment, temporary things. But the problem, the system has moved to everybody disabled.
Now think about
Matter of fact, my back hurt.
Okay.
I need to apply for some benefits.
Right.
My back hurt right here.
Right.
This accident, they ain't give me enough money for that. But I'm just saying.
Right.
You know what I mean? So realistically, black people have to move away from the government going to come help me.
Right. Yeah.
Because I see people coming here, they act like, what you mean they messed up my benefits? I mean, with this assertive right to benefits, not that the government is helping you, but just that they better have my check. My check better be here. And in reality,
that area is over though. But think about it, disability is the new welfare.
It is new welfare. And food stamps is the new cash.
Exactly. But what I want to talk to you about tonight.
I'll let you go.
Yeah. The other thing I want to talk to you about tonight is that this dynamic between corporate welfare and social welfare. Because corporations get a lot of money from the government.
They do.
So how do we subsidize them? And then we say, okay, we go on a downward spiral with social doing things for social issues.
Right, but I think the justification for corporate welfare was, if you really think about it, the corporations really don't need to hire the amount of people they have hired.
Oh, they didn't prove that.
Right. So you can play with them and not give them their bread if you don't want to,
right.
And see how the layoffs start going down.
Okay, which can't multiply and tax.
Because they don't need the people.
You go back into the car.
They don't need the people. We playing a game like they need the people.
Right.
They don't need people anymore.
Right. I agree.
And the game before was, we don't need people, but the people can program and do stuff with the computers. Well, the computers damn near fixing themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You press a button and it clean your PC. A person used to have to come to your office and do that.
Right. Exactly.
Now you press a button and then your PC is clean.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So let's really talk about they don't need people.
Right.
You know what I mean? It may even come to a point in one day, even in certain other professions, like even in the practice of law. For basic stuff, they didn't did it with taxes. Now, watch the way they did you this tax season. You can do your own taxes on your phone. And we're going to ask you these questions. These questions are yes or no questions. And based upon your answers to these yes or no questions, your taxes will be prepared. Right. You don't need a CPA. You don't need H&R Block. You don't need Schmooky Ookie doing your taxes. All you need is an app on your phone, on your mobile phone, and we're going to do your taxes. And send them in electronically and have your money back faster than anybody in the United States of America can have it back.
It's getting interesting.
So that's the real issue at the end of the day. Again, we talked about it earlier today. I'm harping on it again, but it's technology and effective technology on employment. And effective technology also, not simply on employment, but the effective technology on wages. Think about this. That's why corporate welfare is like a joke now, if you really think about it. Because they're doing a favor behind people. That's why I joke call adult daycare. By the time a person gets to the office, you know what I mean, sits down in that chair, cut the computer on,
go get the coffee.
Go get some coffee. Talk to everybody what happened on the weekend. Talk to everybody what happened on the game.
It's lunchtime.
Because like Monday at the Super Bowl, they might as well just declare it a national holiday. Ain't nobody getting nothing done. I don't care who you work for, yourself, a corporation. Even if you work for yourself, you just gonna go, I'm just lying to myself today. I ain't getting nothing done today. I ain't getting nothing done.
Well, let's cut it up.
So all I'm saying is, there has to be an analysis because corporations don't need you. That's why so many of them are moving offshore. Right. So you can play this I'm a tax you to death game if you want to. You know what they're going to do? They're going to move offshore. Because they don't need you anyway. This thing called a corporation is a traveling service. And we can take these tricks anywhere.
Right. Exactly. But what do you think about some members of the Congress saying that they're going to close these loopholes and that they want to find a way to bring these corporations back on the shore of America?
I don't think they can control the corporation. See, the corporation is actually the ultimate government entity, meaning that these corporations, unlike countries, sovereign countries, are actually transnational.
But now that's what Mitt Romney was talking about.
Right.
Mitt Romney was saying corporations are people too. But I really didn't understand what he was talking about when he said that until I really researched what the definition of a corporation is and its amenities.
What's
like
the definition?
Like a multi.
What's the definition of a business?
Well, definition of corporation is basically
any business.
A going concern.
An ongoing business.
An ongoing concern.
Right. Meaning the issue's supposed to keep going on
in perpetuity.
Exactly. Right.
Exactly. So let me tell you something. When I filed my first corporation, I was elated.
And that corporation has an interest.
Exactly.
Right. And that corporation should be moving in the direction of its interest.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. When I filed for my first corporation, I was like, you know what? I'm in charge of my destiny.
You think that's what it meant?
Yes, I thought it meant I'm in charge of my destiny, and I'm going to have to determine whether I have a being, being able to take care of my lifestyle and run my business to make sure that I take care of the operational expenses and I can go anywhere from here. It's up to me.
I agree.
Yeah, it's up to me.
I submit on that.
Yeah.
I ain't got
Yeah. So whether it go
that
up there,
that was the answer.
yeah, it's on me.
You should charge for it.
Yeah, exactly. If it is to be, it's up to me.
Wait with your bad self.
And I get up in the morning and say, okay, everything working? Let's go.
Mm-hmm.
It's on.
That's what's up.
And I'm motivated when I get up in the morning. I pop them vitamins in me and I'm ready to go.
I don't mean no harm. You got a lot of energy.
I understand, but I'm excited about life. I'm excited about what's going to happen today.
That's what's up.
Okay? What can I turn around? See, I'm like you, Counsel. I can take a piece of paper, right? Like, say this is a white piece of paper that's blank. Okay. Now, I got to take this and make something out of nothing. Do you know how hard that is to do? But it's magical when I do it. It's magical. And I'm proud of myself at the end of the day.
Well, I think you've essentially
Okay? I figured it out.
I think you captured the basis of capitalism.
Yeah.
So it doesn't sound like you're gonna be voting for Bernie. Because Bernie want
Can I tell you
Bernie
something?
want everybody, everything gonna be for free.
Can we tell you something?
Matter of fact, don't even worry about the money. We just gonna print some money and act like it's real money.
Can I tell you something, Counsel?
Uh-huh.
Counsel, I went down to Annapolis today. Look, so I go in there and I talk to the people, and everybody likes Mr. Bird, so of course I got at the end of the line. Anyway, I get back there, and the guy says, looking at my application, says, Bishop, you haven't put down who you pledging as a delegate. I said, well, I want to talk to y'all about that before I did. I knew y'all was going to look over the application. He said, what you going to do? What you going to do, Bishop? Put Hillary Clinton down. Yeah. Them Clintons know what they're doing when it comes to that money. That's all they've been proving. I don't need you to tell me that.
I don't know, brother.
I think you're gonna get a cheaper boy.
I think
if Hillary's the president and Bill is the first man, he can't be the first lady.
He's gonna be the first man.
Right, first man. So that means that Hillary gonna be going to Bill about that economy and that foreign stuff.
I think she can do a good job.
Yes.
I think she can do a good
And
job.
I'm not saying she can't do it on her own.
But I don't know if she's gonna get there. Because if Bernie Sanders is going to pull out New Hampshire, I don't know what the next one is after
I'm going to be popping on MSNBC when I get home tonight to see what's going on with the New Hampshire thing. Let me tell you, that last night was close.
Well,
Yeah, but it was close.
You know, as the kids used to do in the neighborhood. Holla at your boy.
Holla at your boy, okay, all right.
Holla at your boy.
So are you going to vote for Hillary Clinton?
No.
Okay, why are you not going to vote for Hillary Clinton?
I actually think if America is going to survive, there needs to be great adjustments.
Okay.
Okay, and I think that, unfortunately, it's like survival of the fittest.
Okay.
Financially. And I think that America needs to, some people, I have a belief about New York, which is, if you're not really successful, you shouldn't live in New York. You should go somewhere else.
Okay.
They got stuff to do in New York.
Right.
Like make money.
Right.
You follow me?
Yeah.
So how can you live in New York and not be successful?
New York is a tribute.
Right. You should go somewhere and be unsuccessful somewhere else.
Right. New York is a tribute, man.
Right. You follow me?
Right. And they figured out this.
And they've got a hierarchy system in there. To live in Manhattan, then it takes a lot of money.
I got a firm that has housing that I do pest control for, and all of them live in Manhattan.
So let me. Yeah, I know.
I was shocked.
I know.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
So I guess my point is understanding that there's got to be
$5,000 a month, boy, just for a little apartment. $5,000.
More than that.
I said, y'all paying $5,000 a month for an apartment?
But it's coming in.
Yeah, the money out of Baltimore.
The bread coming in.
Yeah, but they all that real estate that they get the income off of Baltimore.
Because you can afford it here. You might not be able to afford it in New York. But my point was, there's going to have to be some great change.
Okay.
And I don't know if,
So who are you gonna vote
wow, that's a tough question. You put me on the spot.
for? I like to put you on the spot.
I think I'm going to vote for, I want to vote for Trump, which is unpopular in the black community.
Well,
But I like Trump. That's my man.
okay. Well, I mean, you should be voting for
You know,
whoever you feel
that's
like
my
you
man.
vote for.
I really think it's time for a new change. I don't know much about Cruz, but he won Iowa. I have to take a look at Cruz.
Okay.
And my father just doesn't like Carson. But I met Bay Carson before, highly impressed with him. I think, unfortunately, his whole cerebral function is above most people, and they don't understand it.
Okay.
I don't think he's going to win the nomination. Rubio is a nice, compromise. Rubio is not really a real Republican,
Right.
and is not a real Democrat. He's kind of a mixture. And he's young, and he's got some energy, and he's got that. I think his family's from Cuba, which makes you think, maybe he does have a plan to deal with this whole immigration thing. So I think Rubio is an excellent option, but I think it'll be amongst those three. At the end of the day, even though they crack on Trump in a lot of bad ways, Trump's the answer. Trump doesn't say the things that you like a person to say, but the plane is moving in the right direction. And I think that Hillary's more than capable. I'm not quite sure she's going to beat Bernie to even get you to your Clinton, and I'm not even sure if Trump's going to win. See, it could come out to something strange.
Like what?
It could easily come out to Bernie Cruz.
Bernie
running against Cruz.
Oh, that's a nightmare.
It's a nightmare for everybody.
I think that's a nightmare.
I think that could happen.
Okay, because you've been tossing up.
I think we may be running into one of these, like, I didn't think that was going to happen. It's like a bad Super Bowl. You ever have a Super Bowl that you don't really want to see?
Right.
But because you watch the Super Bowl, you got to watch.
Right.
I think it could come out with something odd.
Yeah. That's bad. That's a nightmare.
It can happen.
It can happen.
All right, well, look, we're going to continue to talk about this, and we'll be right back. The last conversation.
The last conversation.